Welcome back to the All Things NBA podcast from A to Z, presented by ballislife.com. I'm your boy KP, Kris Pursiainen, back at it again with the analytics capper, the man himself, Albert Nguyen. We're here, unfortunately for Albert, in the wake of the biggest NBA news recently being the Derek Lively injury. I mean, we've got the Netflix Olympic documentary coming out February 18th. I'll be tuned in. The clip of KD saying, like, did you see that? Evan
Mhm.
Fournier is like, these guys think we've been playing together for years, and these guys think they can just show up and practice for 3 weeks and beat us. And KD's like, yeah, let's see how that chemistry works when you got to guard Steph Curry. Yo,
Yeah.
cooked him. Oh, the KD Evan beef, remember? The petite,
Yes. Yeah, I
petite.
do. I
Oh
do.
my God. Yo, KD is a funny guy. And NBA fans do not give him enough credit for that, and I'll maintain it. If you are able to tell everyone that they're stupid for gambling while simultaneously telling them what football teams you're betting on this weekend as part of your FanDuel partnership, you're hilarious. And you
Yeah. KD is he's a one of one in many ways. Yeah,
Oh
he's
yes.
a one in many ways.
Letterman clip sticks out too. I'm high right now. That's so funny. But we're here to talk about Eastern Conference contenders and pretenders. If you haven't seen our Western Conference video, it'll be right to my to right of my head or something. It'll be over here on the side. Go check that out on our channel. We talked about three Western Conference teams that we think are the best and whether or not they're for real. We're going to do the same in the Eastern Conference. This time, no creative liberties will be taken with the standings and the rankings because the top three teams in the standings, we agree, are the top three teams in the Eastern Conference this season. That would be the Cleveland Cavaliers, the reigning champion Boston Celtics, and the new face on the block, the New York Knickerbockers, with their two new look starters, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. These are all teams that I feel like are built to beat each other. I think the Knicks were built to beat the Celtics. I think the Celtics were built to beat any team in the league. I think the Cavs were built to rival the Celtics and to be able to match up with them. Very fascinating group at the top of the East, and it's funny because for the majority of my life, at least in my childhood, Al, like the Western Conference was by far the better conference. Everyone made jokes about like realign or delegate the Eastern Conference to the G League, like all these jokes about how the West is so much better. Now these guys like LeBron, Curry, and KD, their teams are not instilling fear in people the way they used to. And I would say, the Nuggets are a really great team. I would say there are teams out west, the Grizzlies, that are true contenders and are shaping up like with a midseason trade, like I said, for Memphis, they'll be a true contender. I think the East probably has the stronger group at the top. Do you agree?
I agree. The East, this is probably the first or second time in the last like 2.5 decades, dude. It's been the West with all the power forwards, right, in the 90s and 2000s with Duncan, Dirk, KG, and all that. Then when the prominence of Steph Curry and LeBron going west, yeah, it's been a very West heavy NBA, but Boston kind of rewrote that last year, right? Because they were the dominant team coming out of the East. And you're right, this year is no different. Headlined by the Cleveland Cavs. They started off on fire, not that they're struggling right now, right? They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're still 36-7, 84% win percentage. They're going through a couple minor injuries, not anything big, right? A lot of the other teams are going through some major injuries. Cleveland's been pretty lucky with injuries, but I mean, as far as pretender contender, like there's no way we can we can hide this, right? They're a legit contender. They're a dominant home team. Um, they have two, really good bigs. Everybody talks about how Evan Mobley is just the tip of the iceberg of what he can become. But I think what this team is where they need to go, and that's to win the finals with their new coach and their new system is Donovan Mitchell has to be a top five player in the postseason. If he's not a top five player when it comes to tournament time, then it's going to be hard, even though they are deep, even though they are long and athletic. I'm just one of those proponents, very old school. Every championship team needs a top five player. That doesn't mean like top five for the year, but for those 2, 3 month run,
Yes.
like Dirk in 2011, like Wade in '06, like those type of top five players, Tatum or Brown last year. So like Mitchell has to be that guy.
Yeah. And it's interesting because his statistical production is down this season, but I don't think anyone would go as far as to say he's been less impactful. It's just about Kenny Atkinson, who, credit to him, we talk all the time about players reinventing their careers. Dennis Smith Jr. coming back as a defensive stalwart, and now he's got a career overseas as a defender. Like guys like Brook Lopez adding a 3-point shot. How about Kenny Atkinson being
Yeah.
a straight up like mediocre head coach with the Brooklyn Nets and finding out that he can cultivate a culture and instill a foundation. But when it came time to get serious, everyone was kind of like, okay, well, we liked this guy's sets on YouTube, but now we're done with him, right? I remember that KD bar. But like, I think he learned a lot from Kerr. And I think part of what he learned is that you need the top five player, but you also need the team to play
Yeah.
and total up a sum that is greater than the total of its parts.
And
Because
it seems like perception has changed on Donovan Mitchell. Again, I didn't watch a lot of Utah Jazz games, and I'm not watching a ton of Cavs games, full transparency.
he's
But
taken a leap.
The Jazz, the Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz, I would say reputation wasn't selfless. Whereas when you watch him play today in 2025 with that Cavs team, he does have the, personify out as a selfless superstar. He lets other people cook. He runs the pick and roll really well. So I think again that just from my perspective, it seems like he's a lot more selfless. You talk about Kenny Atkinson learning from Steve Kerr. I mean, Stephen Curry is arguably the most selfless superstar we've ever had in the NBA. And maybe Atkinson is taking some of those themes and, putting that onto Donovan Mitchell, which is awesome to see.
Yeah. And, Garland's getting the responsibility. Um, Mobley is getting more responsibility. And it's funny because with Mobley, they've literally forced it on him. Like, I genuinely am of the belief that they tell him at times, like, stop looking to pass. Please, we don't care if it's a bad play. Like, just go. Because they're trying to get into his system that he can create offense. He can initiate. There was a play against the Bucks early in the season where he gets a rebound and tosses it to Garland, and Garland gives it right back. And Mobley's like, "Oh, no, no, here you go." And Garland is like, "Go up the court." And Mobley takes it up the court himself. Garland comes, sets a screen for Mobley, and then instant bucket because he found Garland, he rolled, Garland got him on the like there that play had nothing to do with Donovan Mitchell. I think he was on the court, if I remember correctly. It could have been Ty Jerome. They didn't touch the ball, So I think the same way that Dan Campbell says like the reason he goes for it on fourth so much is because he wants to numb his players to like the nerves of going for it on fourth. He wants in a playoff situation when it is time to do it for them to be so used to it that it's like nothing else. I think they're doing that to Mobley right now. They are exposure therapizing Evan Mobley to initiator reps,
Well,
and it's been
too
going
bad.
well.
Well, too bad for Lions fans because their playoff runs are short every single year.
Ah, poor
Yeah.
poor team, poor
Um,
fan base. I
I'd say this. I'd say this about Evan Mobley. I know we have comps on what he could be. Like we as fans and analysts and coaching staff and media members, we have this ideal of what Evan Mobley can be or should be. I say just let him be, man.
yeah,
Because if he's this like, if he's this like, not selfless, but like not aggressive, right? If he's that type of player, and then
yes, he is.
when he is for like a 4 or 5 minute stretch and he just dominates a game, maybe that's his overall impact, right? I don't need a Kevin Garnett for 48 minutes. Maybe I just want KG for 12 minutes. And those 12 minutes is when the Cavs outscore the other team by 20. And that's all I
Yep.
need, right?
I
So
think I think those are the reps they're getting him now, so that when it gets to that point in the playoffs, he's ready to roll.
yeah.
Because you've seen like, again that same Bucks game, he took Giannis and Brook to the rim each, like a separate time each time. That's stuff that he probably just wouldn't like. He wouldn't even have driven on them last year. He would have passed it. So it's cool to see. And I think overall for Cleveland, the guy I want to bring up and shout out is Ty Jerome, and I want to shout out Max Strus. These are two players that have been big time for them, that have been better than I expected they would be. And in the case of Ty Jerome, I think better than anyone not named Miss and Mr. Jerome expected he would be, because he has been a stud. But that said, Karis LeVert, he deserves a shout out for sticking on this team alongside Jarrett Allen from the Brooklyn days. And he now also reunited with Kenny Atkinson. So maybe there's something more that Atkinson can get out of him at some point in this year. But for now, I do think LeVert is the guy giving them their biggest ceiling. Like, the starting lineup is either going to sink or swim. There's no player on the bench that should be inserted to the starting lineup that's going to magically change it, right? But the bench unit, that's what I'm curious to see. How does that hold up in the playoffs? How much does LeVert have to initiate in the playoffs? Will he always be playing with one of Garland or Mitchell? Will he always be insulated? All these questions, for me, I'm assuming the Cavaliers are going to figure them out. So I'm going to agree with you and say contender, but I don't think it would hurt them to go out and acquire a 3-and-D wing for depth. Someone who does not need the ball in their hands to succeed. The Robert Covington mold used to be like the name that everyone threw around. Now Rocco is kind of out of the league, so they've got to kind of figure something else out. But like, I'm trying to think, if Cleveland could get Duop Reith from Portland, I'd be worried. I think that's a move for them that, okay, if they have an injury, they're going to be able to sustain their level of play. The same way that the Knicks last season had the depth that allowed them to just keep plugging bench guys into the starting lineup. I think that can be the Cavs. So we'll see, and we'll see how they go. But I would say contender, and I agree with you, Al, because to be honest, this organization, like, and I'm
Yeah.
writing an article about this right now, so not to give too much away, but like when they traded for Mitchell, we were all kind of like, whoa, he's leaving. Um,
Yeah.
and then that's going to be fun until he leaves. And then he re-signed. And then they actually took a leap into being a contender. So shout out to Donovan Mitchell for staying with the Cavs. Shout out to the Cavs for building an environment that he was willing to stay in. Shout out to Atkinson for reinventing himself as a coach, but still bringing his same passion and fervor. I go contender.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I would be cautious about, because not everything is rosy, right, with every team. Every team has its flaws. Cavs have been known to be a dominant defensive team, and they still in stretches play really good defense. But if you go to dunks and threes right now, their adjusted defensive rating, it's 8. It's still good, right? It's still in the top 10, but it's not dominant. We're not talking about Thunder. We're not talking about Rockets dominant defense. And so maybe they're just chilling right now because it's the regular season and they have the best record in the league. But I would say they need to make sure that they, you know, get that defensive mindset back once the playoffs begin because um you know how it is when the playoffs start. The possessions are long, the pace is much slower, and so yeah, as long as they refocus on defense, we're good, and we have every confidence that Kenny Atkinson will get his team prepared for sure.
No, I'm in on him. I'm in. Um, all right. I think we pivot. The team that the Cleveland Cavaliers pushed, not to the brink, but just pushed them in the playoffs. The Boston Celtics on their way to the NBA championship. Donovan Mitchell and his Cleveland Cavaliers put up with most of the NBA landscape lauded as a valiant fight against the Boston Celtics. I think people were kind of giving them the apology was as loud as the disrespect, if that makes sense. Like, people disrespected the Cavs, rightfully so, for kind of tanking in the seeding and trying to get themselves a first round matchup they thought they could win. I had heard at the time that Donovan Mitchell particularly was infuriated by that choice. I had heard at the time that the organization understood that they were signaling that one playoff series win would make the season good enough, and they still did it anyway. Um, but then they got Boston. They did win. It went to game 7. Magic made it fun. They did win, and they did get Boston. And to their credit, they made it a fight. So the apology was as loud as the disrespect in this case. And I know that rarely happens, but we got one where the Cavs got their shine. Now this season, they're the team on top, trying to dethrone the Boston Celtics. For me, when it comes to the Celtics and their defense of their title, it are the big men going to stay healthy? Are the big Al Horford's 38? I made that up on the spot, but you believed it. He might be older. Kristaps Porzingis is injury prone. So like we gotta make sure that this front court is healthy. Because if they are, there isn't a reason besides luck, shot variance, injury luck, that this team cannot win a 7 game series against any team in the NBA. NBA teams have thought, hey, we're just going to leave Drew Holiday open instead of guarding him because him shooting a three is kind of our best shot at them not scoring. And then he's still Drew Holiday. So sure, he's only shooting, like some mediocre percentage that a stat sheet watcher looks at and they're like, oh yeah, he can't really shoot. No, he can't really shoot. You're right, stat sheet watcher, but damn it, he was good enough to keep the offense going. Now they're ignoring him and he's got to make them pay. He's been doing it just enough to get them to stop ignoring him. So the Celtics to me are still on top. I think they're still the best team in the NBA. You got to be the man, and they were the man. And now to be the man, you got to beat the man, and they're the man still. So I don't know. Like I think they're on top, and I'm gonna easily say contender. The thing is, what is that health looking like come playoff time, and to what extent can you use your bench unit right now to help alleviate the load off of your starters? Because we'll get to this. Even the Knicks have put a slight downtick on their starters' minutes now that they're starting to get some guys back from injury.
Yeah, that's good to hear regarding the Knicks. But back to Boston. I mean, everybody is expecting this dominant 70 win team coming off a championship, and everyone feels like because they're not doing that, they're struggling. But Kris, they're 31 and 13. Like they're not struggling that bad, right? They went through a little bit of injuries. They're still
Good
winning at
team.
71% clip. You mentioned Horford's 38 confirmed. He is 38
I
years old.
guess, right?
Yeah.
That's that
I mean,
Dominican connection. Come on.
he's definitely gonna chill from now until the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, you started us off with saying these three teams were kind of constructed and built from a roster perspective to beat each other. The other team that's part of this equation in terms of roster building was the Sixers and Embiid. And so there's all these centers on these top three teams that were meant to stop Embiid. Obviously, the Sixers are disappointing, 15 and 27. Embiid may not even play basketball ever again. Who knows? But we know that they have these centers that might not be as valuable as they would have been if they played Philly, right? But with that said, Boston, in my opinion, when healthy, the starting five is still the best starting five, not from a talent standpoint at all, because I love the Knicks starting five, but the Celtics, their cohesiveness, the way that they can share the ball offensively and defensively, the switchability on defense, and then Porzingis as the wild card, he can go off and hit six, seven, eight threes in a game, and that makes them basically unstoppable.
Yeah.
Definitely a contender. They're definitely going through the motions right now in the regular season. And I would say, to your point, I agree. It should be up to Missoula and the staff to really lessen the minutes from the starters and allow some shine for, and they're doing it, right? We've seen Payne Pritchard do his thing. We've
Yeah.
seen
And he hoops. That guy is probably the sixth man of the year by the end of the year.
yeah, like the
Probably.
bench unit isn't bad, but they're just chilling right now. And I'm not a Boston defender. So the fact that I'm saying that they're just hanging out and they're a legit contender because they are the defending champs, and with them, and it's always going to be this way because of Porzingis and Drew, is they just have to be healthy. And I think that's the most important thing.
And that's the big difference between them and the Knicks, right? And that's why it's not the end of the world if the Knicks play their guys a lot of minutes because their guys love it. And the Knicks also don't practice as aggressively as other teams because Thibodeau is very aware of the stress he puts on the bodies of his starters and his heavy minute players. So they practice lighter than most teams. The Knicks are they're not just like running their guys into the ground like on like sandpaper because they feel like they can, like there's like a whole team of doctors that gets paid more money than I'll touch in my life to try and keep these guys healthy. I promise they're not just grinding down their bones because they feel like they can. They're working on it. And the players like straight up would do something about you think Jalen Brunson, his godfather, runs the team. You think something wouldn't have been Anyway, I think with Boston, their guys are older, and that's the big difference. So, yes, it's a little more important to have Horford and Holiday on ice than it is Bridges and Towns because well, Bridges and Towns combine to Al Horford's age. So it's like, you
Not,
know,
not only are they older, Chris, but like even the young guys in their physical primes, Tatum and Brown, they've gone into deep playoff runs like 7, 8 years in a row, right? Like that's not easy to do. And although Tatum didn't play much in the Summer Olympics, he was still there practicing. So it's not like his body has been resting at all. So yeah, I think they're just chilling. I would say the more interesting question or discussion here is like who would Boston rather see in a conference finals? Would it be Cleveland or would it be New York? I'll let you answer that.
that's a great question. I think the my guess would be that they would rather see New York. And I think it's because they're willing to bet that they have more schemes that they can play to perfection than the Knicks do. And what I mean by that is the Knicks are going to have Robinson back, assuming they keep him. The Achua Towns lineups, Al. Oh my God. I have to find the numbers on it and send it to you. You're going to laugh. Like the Precious Achua Carl Towns lineups are shredding. Like
He's the, he's Thibodeau's new Taj Gibson.
they're
He's
shredding, bro.
gonna be attached. They're gonna be attached to the hip for the next 15 years.
Precious, yeah.
Yeah.
Tibbs is realizing he loves it. He's got another kid from New York City that just loves to go out there and be athletic and physical and rebound the damn basketball. And every once in a while, when he gets the runway, he unleashes a poster dunk that genuinely drops your jaw. The thing with the Achua and Towns lineups is that there's also going to be the Robinson and Towns and the Anunoby and Towns and the Anunoby and Robinson. Like they're going to have these combinations, right? But the Celtics invented these combinations. They just won the championship because they laid their cards out on the table, flipped them face up. They said, "Pick. You tell me what my deck is, I'll still beat you with it." And the dealer chose the worst cards they could, and the Celtics were like, "Yeah, I'll double down too. Watch. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take that. I'll take all those chips." So the Celtics, they won the finals the way they did because of their scheme versatility. We talked about this at the time. Porzingis brought Lively out. But the other way happened too. Like they tried it both ways. They tried dropping Lively and it didn't go well because the Celtics will just shoot in his face. So they had to bring Lively out to Porzingis. Then Tatum and Brown could drive into the paint a million times. I think the Celtics think they can do that to the Knicks. I think the Celtics are aware that they can beat the Cavaliers, but I think they would probably want the Knicks. And I think I would want them too if I were Boston. I
Yeah.
think Cleveland is the kind of team that weirdly would pull out a win against a team like Boston this year. So
Yeah.
I would say I'll take a shot at the bigger target there.
So now that we're moving to New York, let me go ahead and give my 2 cents before we let you cook for 10 minutes because I
Oh,
know
don't do that.
no, no, no. Like we want the viewers want you to cook on the Knicks. Um, I would say from a talent standpoint, Chris, the starting five, this is number one for me. Like this is how high I am on the starting five with OG and Mikal. The other part I wanted to talk about is they definitely need Mitch back. Carl Anthony Towns playing the five for 35, 40 minutes a game during the regular season is just too tough on his body. We've seen that already. It's a historical thing. It's not just this year. He just can't handle that. The other thing I want to talk about is outside of the starting five, right? And again, I'm not super close to New York as you are, but the guys of Miles McBride, Cameron Payne, Landry Shamet, Jericho Sims, it doesn't do it for me, dude. It doesn't do it for me when we're comparing them to the Bostons and the Clevelands. So that's my third topic. The fourth one, obviously, I just asked this with Boston, but if you were New York, would you rather see Cleveland or Boston in conference finals? That's all I have.
Man. Well, first of all, I want to say, Al, have you seen the Knicks play recently in a game where they don't have one of the stars?
No.
It's a very niche question, but like the Knicks have had a bunch of games where like everyone's in except Brunson or everyone's in except Towns. No good. You're right. That starting five is elite, and the fit is fantastic. But without one of the five pieces, because of the lack of depth, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And so the Knicks are a team that definitely needs to be healthy for the playoffs. And they know from last season that they do. The problem is they really don't believe they have the personnel to be able to go 10, 11 deep like some of these coaches do. Like in Oklahoma City, where your 11th man is AJ Mitchell, someone who I would have taken in the first round. I just, it's it's tough to for me to project this Knicks team as being able to reach their ceiling in the playoffs because I think Boston can still like get close enough to its ceiling if, say, Jaylen Brown or Al Horford or again, I'm picking names out of a hat. I do not want to wish or speak into existence injury on anybody, but I think the Celtics could survive that. I think the Cavaliers could survive that. I'm not sure the Knicks could. And part of that, part of the reason I say I'm not sure is because I'm deferring to Josh Hart. Josh Hart has been an all-star caliber player this season. Full stop. Period. End of take. End of sentence. He is this year's Derek White. Last year, Derek White played at an all-star level. He was not an all-star. If you have any respect for the all-star game, you did not vote for him once as an all-star. And unless you're part of the Boston media mafia, you did not write anywhere that he should be an all-star. But damn it, did his play deserve it? And I think he got the shine he deserved despite not making the game. I think this year's version of that is Josh Hart, and I think it should be talked about as such. This guy is freaking Kirby for the Knicks. Whatever abilities they need him to have, he's got it. He will shapeshift into whoever the Knicks need him to be. He is like the basketball equivalent of a people pleaser. Whatever someone wants you to be, whatever you think someone finds funny, a real people pleaser is trying to make them laugh, is trying to fill in the gaps, that's Josh Hart. You need rebounding. He's 6'4". He just got 14 boards on your favorite 7-foot center. Jalen Brunson's out. We need playmaking. Josh Hart. Oh my God, you finished with 12 assists. Like the guy is a lunatic. And so he's been such a stud for the Knicks that I do defer to his ability to fill in gaps in terms of their ability as a team to mitigate injuries in the postseason. That all said, I do like the approach the Knicks have taken to the minutes with their depth, not practicing as hard on off days and playing the starters a lot, and that being kind of how they play themselves into shape, working on defensive concepts in practice and things of the sort and weightlifting, but they get their cardio in the games, and for me, when I look at the team and how they're handling it, I think given their circumstances, they traded Karl Towns. They traded for Karl Towns about a couple days before media day. They had to sneak him in the back of the Tarrytown facility to do like a fake photo shoot, and then they did a real one later. Like it was like, I just can't. I can't imagine that the Knicks this year have the depth to win it all. And I'm not saying that given their team right now. I'm saying we know injuries are a given and they're part of the game. Tom Thibodeau, Jalen Brunson, they're the first people to tell you injuries are a part of the game. They are not an excuse for anything. Great. Let's act that way. The Knicks are going to, like all NBA teams, if they come across injuries in the postseason, I don't think they'll be able to survive them. Same as last year. Last year, they put up a heck of a fight. This year, I think it will crumble because the guys will all be exhausted. The thought of an injury would be so demoralizing. I just don't know that this team organizationally is of the belief that they can win it all this year. And they're going to try. They're going to give it their best shot, and I'm sure the players in the locker room believe that they can win it all, that they know they have a lot to work on, but they have the right group of guys in the building. I don't think at the top level that they think that this is a championship year for the team.
And do you think that's just depth related? Because starting five, it is championship caliber.
It is, but remember we talked to Adam Modis about the Nuggets starting five before they, lost KCP, and he just talked to us about how the tweaks the team made to the roster over the years, while mostly keeping that starting five 100% intact, like those minutes are irreplaceable. You can't there's nothing in a film room that can replace the fact that Jalen Brunson knows the exact speed at which Josh Hart is cutting to the rim and he knows exactly when to pass it and where so that Josh will get it, where Josh personally likes to catch the ball to go and lay it in. Why? Because they went to college together. Like there's chemistry that you can't teach. And Bridges and Towns have yet to develop that with the rest of the team. They were just talking about it after the win the other night. Got to have patience with the team. We're still figuring stuff out. So I would say for New York, it is depth related. Yes, because the depth causes them now in January to be playing their top 7 guys like it is March or April or late March or early April or whatever, where they're making a huge playoff push. But I will also say that I just don't see this as a championship winning year for the Knicks because it is the first year that their very dynamic and versatile offensive starting five has shared the court together. So they're going to need to learn each other's tendencies. They're going to need to learn what they don't want to learn, which is, okay, Cat likes to take these kind of shots, but we want him taking these kind of shots. So if I pass it to him here instead of here, he's more like they've got to learn how to help each other out in little ways. If you have a friend that is always late to stuff, if you need them to be somewhere by 3, you tell them 2:45, right? Like it's just how it works in life. So they're gonna figure out those little versions of basketball. Like how can we set up McHale where he can get the best angle on his fadeaway? Oh, it's funny. Most players go to the rim, so I try and stand at the baseline as a big to space the floor for them. But you like the fadeaway, so I should actually be in the corner. Speaking as Cat, they're going to realize all these things, and they're going to put them into effect and they're going to get better at playing the game of basketball as a team. I just don't know that there's enough time this year, given the fact that it's January 23rd and Mitchell Robinson has yet to suit up for the Knicks in this season. And we're in 2025, almost in the second month. I just don't know that there's enough time left for them this year.
I got 2 questions for you. One, we're halfway through the season, like you said. You're satisfied with the Karl Anthony Towns trade, right? It was a
Very.
win then, and it's a win-win now. Okay, yeah.
And I would call the Knicks a pretender right now. And I would say that was a win of a trade. The Bridges trade was a win of a trade. Go on.
And the other caveat is that, and you mentioned this through standings, how the Cavs kind of lost last year to get a better matchup. 3 is tough in the East right now, right? Because 3 in that first round, you're going to potentially play someone like the Pistons or the Magic if they get healthy, or something crazy like maybe you guys play the Pacers, and it's always weird with the Knicks and the Pacers, right?
I think the Pacers matchup in the first round is like on a crash course because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think they get it together a little bit. I think the Magic, as they get healthy, the Magic are already in like fourth, dude.
yeah.
So as they get healthy, they'll be able to stay there.
And then
I
second round obviously is the defending champs with Boston, so that's tough. And then third round, you're going to be on the road against most likely Cleveland, depending on how that changes. But right now, Cleveland is 5.5 games above Boston, so I think they're going to keep the 1 seed. But that's a really tough, route to get to the final. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and when you trade for a superstar like Karl Anthony Towns, and Towns is a superstar, you traded for
oh,
you traded you traded away depth. There's no way you can have a superstar back and keep all your depth. So it makes sense that, the management is not thinking that this could be the year. But
no, they did the trade. They got the trade done days before the season started. Like
next
that.
year it is championship or bust though, next year.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing though is I think the Knicks window is next year, the year after, and the year after that. So that 3-year window, that is your time. That's their time to get it done. I do think, not that any team can be predicted to like, I think the Knicks and the Cavaliers are both organizations that I would say, yeah, if I had to put a chip on them that they'll win a championship in the next 3 years, like I'll play them on my roulette board of NBA teams that I think could maybe win a chip. Like, would I play the Houston Rockets? I'm not sure right now. And I love their young talent, but I'm not sure because even though they're at the top of the standings, they're still looking to make that big swing. If they make it this summer or next year, then the team is going to need a year to get gelled. That's really only 1 year in that window for the Rockets then.
Point.
I think the Knicks and Cavs have like a lot of, I think this is their runway. And the Spurs, watch out, right? Because they're coming too. But again, whatever star they get, him and Wemby, whether it's Fox, whether it's Booker, I don't know, but they're gonna need time to gel. Not everyone is 40-year-old Chris Paul walking in there with 2 lifetimes worth of pick and roll experience. So I just think there's going to be a chance over these next couple seasons for a team that has not won a championship in a long time, or for an organization that has not seen success, um, to see it, whether it's Cleveland because they haven't seen it in a decade since LeBron left, and that would be a big deal for them, or whether it's New York who hasn't been to the finals since before I was born. Yeah,
29.
99. I'm 02. So, my parents met the year that the Knicks last made it to the championship, dude. Like, I wasn't even a thought at the time. So we'll see. I think one of those teams can get it done. We're going to head out. We'll thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time right here on All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life. For Albert Nguyen, I'm KP, signing off. See you next time.
Subscribe.